hello, and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Fate Reforged. This is round number 6. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Randy Buehler. And down in our feature match area, we have, well, we've got two of the better Japanese players.
It's like the ghost of Japan's future versus the ghost of Japan's past or something along those lines.
Kentaro Yamamoto is who you're looking at there. And his opponent for this round is Shuhei Nakamura, the Hall of Famer. Both players on 4 and 1. We're playing modern here. Randy, do you have an idea what these guys are playing?
Yeah, Yamamoto is on an Abzan list, but his Abzan is kind of interesting in that he does not play Liliana of the Veil. That's the single card that most Abzan players tell you is the best card in their deck, but he doesn't have anything that's double black. He's got actually a more green-white centered version. Okay. So where most people would have Liliana, he has 4 copies of Voice of Resurgence.
Huh.
Yeah, so a little more 2-drop centric, you know, Voices and Rhinos and Tarmogoyfs, but those Voices joining in could be interesting. And without the Liliana, it just gives his deck sort of, it's got most of the Abzan goodies, including the Lingering Souls that are all the rage, but a bit of a different twist. Shuhei, meanwhile, is on Jeskai Control. I mean, if you watched Sean McLaren win the last Modern Pro Tour, you've seen most of what this deck is capable of. You know, multiple Sphinx's Revelations. He's maybe a little more control-ish than most, but that's the vibe.
But we're talking Wall of Omens.
Wall of Omens, yep.
Restoration Angels, Snapcaster Mages, that kind of stuff?
All true.
All right. I like this deck.
2 Supreme Verdicts.
A lot of value in this deck.
Definitely.
The question is, can it keep up and does it have the right answers to the questions that Kentaro Yamamoto is going to be posing? You can see Kentaro is currently ranked 16th in our top 25 pro rankings. Shuhei not currently on.
Just look at those career totals. 577 pro points.
Really one of the great careers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 5 Pro Tour top 8s, 25 Grand Prix top 8s. I think he has won a Grand Prix on every continent.
That's insane.
Oh, sorry, 5 continents. He hasn't won one in Africa.
I
think only Ben Sek. I think there's only ever been one Grand Prix in Africa.
So he's not going to give that one up.
The other crazy stat I heard about Shuhei is that he has played in something like 40% of all the Grand Prix that have ever happened.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
I think it might be 35%, but it's such a crazy number to think about.
It is.
There's 1,100 Grand Prix wins.
All right, so here's Lingering Souls for Yamamoto. A nice card against Shuhei with a lot of spot removal in the deck. You know, Lingering Souls looks pretty good, and it's also fairly immune to getting countered because you're usually only countering half of it anyway. Looks like Shuhei's going to take 2 from the Spirits here. Does Shuhei have anything in the way of sweepers in the main deck? Is that something that he can...
Supreme Verdict.
He's got Supreme Verdict main?
Couple of them.
Okay. That'll do it. That'll 1-for-1 nicely if Kentaro gives him the opportunity. Supreme Verdict in hand for Nakamura, as you can see.
But there's the Thoughtseize.
On the right-hand side, yeah.
Suddenly he has to care about getting Thoughtseized here.
Right, so he's going to have to Mana Leak to protect if his plan does revolve around actually resolving a Supreme Verdict. But Nakamura says, no, that's okay. You may proceed. And Kentaro is going to count out the full 7 there from Nakamura.
Yeah. Interesting judgment call for Shuhei there. I certainly would have been tempted by the Mana Leak to set up the Supreme Verdict. I mean, he doesn't have the 4th land yet, and he does have the Restoration Angel, so he can potentially block Spirits. That also needs the 4th land.
Now, interestingly, you would assume if you're in Shuhei's seat that Kentaro has spot removal being an Abzan deck, and you're probably not going to give him that many targets for it, so that Angel probably isn't long for this world.
Right.
Well, Kentaro...
yeah, he takes the Supreme Verdict.
Took it, yeah.
Makes sense.
And Yamamoto, are we flashing back a Lingering Souls, or do you have another threat to play, Kentaro? Looks like the Souls. He's thinking. He actually has 2 options. He's going to play a Godless Shrine first. He's just going to hardcast another Lingering Souls. This is more mana efficient for him.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
He knows that his life total isn't in immediate jeopardy, though it is surprising how quickly these Jeskai decks can turn the corner and start throwing lightning bolts at ye old face as opposed to your creatures. Usually once they start activating those Celestial Colonnades you see that Shuhei has 2 of, the tides turn quickly. But Shuhei is miles away from that board state as...
and did not play a land last turn.
Not playing lands here, stuck with a bunch, and against really a card that he doesn't want to see here, Lingering Souls. He's passed the turn back to Yamamoto, who's going to play a Tarmogoyf and flashback Lingering Soul. So with the coast clear in Yamamoto's mind, off he goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's half to exile time for Shuhei.
Is Shuhei going to have to start using spot removal on?
Yeah, definitely.
Tokens and or Tarmogoyfs?
Yeah, I mean the path on Tarmogoyf seems required. Lightning bolting the token is a little bit more of a judgment call, but I mean his hand, he didn't draw either the 4th land or the Supreme Verdict. It's starting to look like a game where he's going to be obliged to just... God, he can't throw 4 cards at a Lingering Souls, can he?
I don't think you can get away with that.
That's what he may have to do.
Yeah.
Update from a back table. Sounds like Andrew Cuneo has taken a quick game 1. Become Immense, pointed at an infect creature.
That is scary. That is so scary.
Think about who's playing this deck, too. Like, that infect deck, there's an infection running around Team Pantheon. They've actually been ill all week, too, hilariously enough. Kai Bude was, like, holed up, like, asleep all week.
Oh, wow.
The team has been affected both literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, Jagger Vigersma has won his first game against Sivka as well.
It's a pretty good King of the Hill matchup, Sivka versus Vigersma.
So Yamamoto firing off another Thoughtseize here on Nakamura's hand. Nakamura predicting Cryptic Command. And he was correct. And once again, Nakamura just helpless here to Yamamoto, just letting him have his way with those Thoughtseizes. It looks like there's be Restoration Angel time here, but any removal spell gets rid of it.
Yeah,
this time it's Path to Exile. Now that's getting an extra land for Shuhei is pretty nice, and frankly, he only took 3 damage on that attack.
He needed the 3/4 more than he needed to land.
Yes.
Yeah, Lingering Soul is just a good card in this matchup. Shuhei's only real way to trade with it efficiently is with Supreme Verdict. He has only got a couple. One of them got knocked out by a Thoughtseize. So Yamamoto just keeps pouring on the pressure.
And, you know, Shuhei paying 4 mana at sorcery speed for Supreme Verdict is hoping to get a little more than a 1-for-1 out of it. I mean, you'll take it, when you need to, but it's not like that's Kentaro Yamamoto's only 1-card threat, right? He can also just play a Siege Rhino, which must be answered, or even a Tarmogoyf sometimes. So Shuhei drops down to 9. Draws his card, passes a turn. No land drop here either. Shuhei still not enough mana to activate his Colonnade and block with it. He's got something. He's got Path to Exile to take care of the Rhino. So Shuhei hanging in there, but his life total's dwindling quickly. He's down to 6 now. Did you say he has an extra copy of Supreme Verdict in the main?
Yeah, I mean the other good
one.
Oh, he has 2. The other good thing he could draw is Sphinx's Revelation.
It's not a bad one,
Perhaps
especially
you
after
remember
just
that
got
from Standard.
Path Exiled, yeah, totally. Keenly. I see a Stirring Wildwood down there for Yamamoto as well, which could be a big problem for Nakamura.
Is this picking up the graveyard for Delve?
I think it's Tassiger time.
I think it might be Tassiger time.
There he is.
Definitely the most impactful Fate Reforged card on this tournament. There's Tassigers running around It's in the Abzan decks. I even saw one in a Zoo deck. Like Chapin's got the Esper Delve list that's basically Esper Tassiger.
Yeah, it's just trivially easy to fill up your graveyard in Modern. I mean, your mana base does it, your spells do it, a lot of free spells do it. You just can load up.
First couple of Delve cards are basically free.
All right, Nakamura has found a Wall of Omens. He used his Desolate Lighthouse to loot on end step, discarded a Flooded Strand, but found a wall.
Let's activate the ability.
So Nakamura gets to choose here.
Right. Gives him the Lingering Souls?
Yeah.
Rather than the Path of the Sorin.
That's the slower option. None of it's good news.
No, they're all
Nakamura,
bad options for sure.
Yeah. Who is hoping to chump block here. And this is a lethal attack if Shuhei has nothing. Tassiger can get blocked by the wall, but it's still 6 damage. And Lightning Helix to take out one of the tokens. All right, well, that's going to jump Shuhei back up to 9. He's going to block the Wildwood, take 6, and go back down to 3.
It's not nothing, but it's close.
It's a draw step. The problem is at 3, the Wildwood is now lethal.
Exactly. Even Supreme Verdict isn't good enough anymore.
And Verdict doesn't get him out of it. Sounds like a good old-fashioned race.
Yeah, Frank Karsten got his win. He was all in on Ravager, which Frank was just saying in the deck tech segment. You go all in on Ravager. He's very aggressive about just putting his entire board on top of one creature. And
in this case, it was an Inkmoth Nexus.
Yep, got there a turn before he was going to get burned out.
He didn't test with Pantheon, did he?
Ah.
All right, so Shuhei has found a Cryptic Command, but which actually is good enough here, though, in an incredibly awkward way. So there's a weird interaction here where he plays Cryptic Command, and Kentaro can actually activate his Stirring Wildwood, but the wall's keeping it back. But Kentaro is going to get a token for his Voice of Resurgence that he played pre-combat, and Shuhei has been behind at every stage of this game and continues to be in that position. He's resolved spells on consecutive turns and has kept himself alive, but barely. And he is in a very tough position here. And he's passed the turn back to Shuhei. And Shuhei says, I've had enough of this, and scoops him up. So Kentaro Yamamoto picks up the first game against Shuhei Nakamura. All right, we'll be back for a live look-in after these messages.
Ultra Pro is the place to go for all your Magic accessories. With card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios showing off the best Magic art, Ultra Pro is the standard in safe storage. Visit ultrapro.com for more information.
Vampires, dragons, beasts. Monsters are awesome, and so are Magic fans. So we're giving Magic 2015 Duels of the Planeswalkers players the new Master of Monsters card pack as a bonus. Get these 30 new all-foil cards added to your digital collection as a bonus starting February 11th. Visit magicthegathering.com now to learn more.
All right, we're back down in the feature match area here.
Going to get a look at Andrew Cuneo and the Infect deck that a decent chunk of Pantheon is playing. Got to assume Tom Ross. Yeah, even Cuneo, exactly.
Like, you know it's good if Cuneo picked it up.
I may have spot checked a couple Pantheon members. I'm like, how much did Tom Ross really get the whole team on Infect? Got Cuneo. Oh, yeah, got Andrew. Sure, here we go.
Now his opponent is Ken Yukihiro from Japan. And it looks like Ken's on Abzan.
Yeah, and that is by far the most played deck in this field. I haven't seen the stats yet, but you can tell. I'm sure Abzan's going to come in #1. And they're not, there's a couple little variants, right? You saw Voice of Resurgence from Yamamoto. You saw, a heavy Gavany Township mana creature version from some of the face-to-face guys. But most of them overlap by a lot of cards. That is the deck. If you can beat that deck, you're in decent shape. And you know what? I'm sure Pantheon tested a ton against Abzan.
It looks like Yukihiro's already picked up 1 poison.
Yeah, you just kind of chip away. I mean, Become Immense is the real card that I think has pushed this deck over the top from where it was, say,
Totally.
a year ago.
You know, we were talking about that earlier with Tassiger, how easy it is to get cards into your graveyard in Modern. It still counts for Become Immense as well.
Look at the enchantment that Cuneo has in play, too. This is the other card that this Pantheon list has that, I mean, it's not brand new tech, but I haven't seen a ton of it. It's Wild Defiance.
I remember that card. Wow.
Anytime a creature gets targeted, either by you or by your opponent, it gets +3/+3.
Yeah.
So all your guys are now immune to Lightning Bolt, and all of your Giant Growth effects deal +3. Become Immense, by the way, you add 3 to that,
Wow.
and every
Lethal.
single creature in your deck is lethal on the first hit.
Huh. Now, this is a game 2. Cuneo won the first game. Is Wild Defiance a main deck card?
Main deck?
Oh, baby. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh. Sorry.
All right, so
So
he's got Pendelhaven. He's got a couple of Inkmoth Nexuses.
You think they were ready for all these Lingering Souls we've seen? It's a tough card against this deck.
Yep.
Probe sees Soul's Voice Tarmogoyf.
Correct. Another Glistener Elf off the top for Cuneo. How's he going to get through?
I mean, Pendelhaven, right?
Pendelhaven,
Turns the 1/1 into a 2/3.
but no evasion. It's just, I think the idea is
Oh,
just
you
to-
slog through.
yeah, I think you just chump, but the problem is Cuneo's at 6. Yukihiro has assembled a clock, though this does get interesting now. Now Cuneo has a total of 4 infect creatures, up to 5 available.
Well, you're right, though. Andrew does have to start jump blocking Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
Presumably here. Yeah, Elf blocks Tarmogoyf.
Good for.
He's going to slog through, well, the next Lingering Souls hit the graveyard.
Ooh,
So another
replacement
Tarmogoyf, and yeah, okay, there's the second Lingering Souls.
And there's already one in the yard as well.
Right. That's a lot of flying blockers. I mean, I feel like Cuneo could have slogged through one of them,
Uh-huh.
but I don't think he can slog through 2 of them.
God, I don't even, I mean, what you see represents one of them.
Yeah, we haven't got a good look at Andrew's hand yet. I mean, the deck has tricks. The deck has ways.
Are they playing anything to give the creature trample and or evasion?
Yes.
Okay, so they've got ways.
Yeah. Unblockable gets the job done. Protection from color on a flyer would get the job done.
Totally.
Or sometimes you just gotta slog through. I guess he gets, what, 1 more turn? He can chump 2 Tarmogoyfs here.
Yes, he will lose one of his ink moths.
Ugh. Yeah, Voice of Resurgence. Just in case.
Yeah,
But
Not super relevant.
pressure just keeps rolling
Yeah,
here.
attack, attack, attack. It seems like Andrew has to chump block.
I wonder
both
if the
Tarmogoyfs.
spirits can get in too. The 2 spirits
Wow,
plus
with
the
Andrew with
Tide
4?
Hollow Sculler equals lethal.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think the Spirits is actually lethal. Right, because the 2 Tarmogoyfs get chumped, and there are no more blockers. So Sculler plus Spirit, it's a little risky.
Well, no, so there's 2 total ink moths plus the Glistener Elf that could block here.
One of the Ink Moths is tapped. Oh, no, 2 Ink Moths.
There's 2
There's 3 in
untapped.
play. Yeah, there's 2
Yeah.
untapped.
So
right. But this forces him to do that play.
it does. And remember, Yukihiro also gets to flash back at least one of the Lingering Souls as well.
Yeah, so
And that's going to do it.
Andrew has no way to win. I do think he could have survived that attack, but he has no way to win next turn, then he may as well pack him up.
Right. All right, so that's actually evens things up in that match, though. Ken Yukihiro, who had lost the first game, successfully races Andrew Cuneo to tie things up and force a game 3 there. All right, looks like we're back on our main feature match, so that'll be Shuhei Nakamura on your right and Kentaro Yamamoto on your left. Kentaro won the first game in convincing fashion, got out to an early start, never looked back. Thoughtseize is really picking apart the hand of Shuhei as well.
Well, I mean, he got the Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
Other than the Supreme Verdict, those Lingering Souls were going to pick apart his hand even without any help.
It's true.
라이트닝で
All right, Lightning Bolt. So an elemental token stares down a wall here while Kentaro Yamamoto thinks about how to take this turn. Shuhei sees it all. He's, at this point, the game's just pure intuition to him. He rarely goes in the tank.
Yeah, one of the greats. Been playing forever and at a very high level.
All right, so he mana leaked half of a Lingering Souls here.
I mean, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, that also keeps that elemental down to a manageable level. It's just a 1-1. It was going to be a 3-3. Still gets blocked by a wall, but like you said, you do what you got to do. Sometimes you got to 2-for-1 yourself to get around. And Shuhei is going to play an untapped Hollowed Fountain, signaling that he could have a card like Cryptic Command in his hand, maybe a Restoration Angel.
It is, in fact, so that he can Snapcaster Mana Leak.
There you go. Don't know how excited he would be to do that, given the elemental. But I think that he's going to snap off pretty much anything that Kentaro does here. Kentaro really can't get away with anything other than land 1-drop. Oh, he's got a Thoughtseize in his hand.
And an Inquisition.
But then I guess if Shuhei really wanted, he could use Cryptic Command.
And how does Shuhei win this matchup? This looks awful for the Jeskai.
This does not look great, no. I think that, you were onto it earlier in game 1 when you said if he drew his Sphinx's Revelation at some point,
sure,
that would help a lot. I think that if he can 1-for-1 and then maybe sometimes 2-for-1 himself, to stay alive and then fire off a big Sphinx's Revelation, I think that's how he gets ahead here. Because Kentaro has answers for everything that Shuhei's doing. Like, even right now, he's going for his only red source of Steam Vents.
Wow.
Pretty aggressively here.
Seems like a good play.
Yeah, I like this, and it's putting Shuhei in a very awkward spot, though Shuhei's hand looks pretty nice.
I mean, the Abzan deck just wants to play an attrition game. Just trade my cards for your cards, trade my cards for your cards. And I mean, the Abzan cards tend to just, leave behind an elemental token, or then you follow up with like a Tarmogoyf. You just make life really miserable for your opponent. And Shuhei's deck is also kind of okay with trading cards, but the way it wins, it has to build up mana and get to that Sphinx's Revelation, or get to the point where it can attack with Colonnade, wipe the board, and generate card advantage with a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah. So, I don't speak Japanese, but now I know how to say, go to my second main phase, because that's what Yamamoto did, and now he's going to fire off, looks like an Inquisition of Kozilek is going to take away Snapcaster Mage. It's going to leave
that
Shuhei.
Tech Edge there?
That
Tech Edge
great.
meant that he couldn't Snapcaster Mana Leak.
That's right. That was great. Now Shuhei's left with Celestial Purge and a pair of Path to Exiles. Not bad. Those will take the big threats out of the equation. But as Shuhei has to just sort of bite the bullet here. He's going to Path to Exile his own Wall of Omens. And he's kind of forced to do that.
He needs to land.
Also, with a redundant copy of Path to Exile and his opponent with no really good target for it at the moment, you can see that Shuhei feels like he's got to fire that off. No, he's rethinking. So he had gone for a mountain. That replaced the red source that got Tectonic Edge last turn, but
makes sense.
He's thinking about getting an island here, maybe. Yeah, he is. He wants to have Cryptic Command available, I guess. Maybe if he draws another Snapcaster.
I mean, Shuhei's deck is pretty close to the one Sean McLaren won the last Modern Pro Tour with.
It is.
But there just was not nearly as much black-green running around. I mean, Siege Rhino hadn't been printed yet, so obviously the Abzan decks didn't have that. Many of them were black-green without a splash, or maybe black-green-red.
I mean, to be fair to the Jeskai control deck, it can win an attrition game, right? It can 2-for-1 you back.
It can, but Lingering Souls really tilts it.
Lingering Souls is tough. There's no doubt about it. All right, so the other Path to Exile gets taken away by Thoughtseize, and that's going to clear the way for a Tarmogoyf here. It's also going to buff up the Elemental token, cracking in for 2 damage for Yamamoto. So that was kind of the payoff turn for him.
Yep.
And you can see that the scales have tipped sharply in Kentaro Yamamoto's favor. No targets on board for Celestial Purge stuck in Nakamura's hand. And Shuhei's just drawn 1 card. He's got 1 extra card besides that.
Was that a Frank Karsten update I just heard? Did Frank finish off that match? Yeah, sounds like
He
2
did.
Master of Ethereum.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. So Frank Karsten wins over Akash Naidu, who was playing Burn, by the way.
Along with lots and lots of other people.
Yeah, Burn versus Affinity, and it turns out Affinity is slightly faster in that match, so.
It's a good sign for the Affinity deck, actually. I mean, obviously super small sample size, but there's 3 different linear aggro decks running around in decent numbers. There's the Burn deck, there's the Affinity deck, and there's the Infect deck.
Yeah.
I want to see, can you build like an Affinity Infect deck? It would be an Infinity deck, I guess. Cranial plating on the Infect
that's how
guy
that
would hit really hard. Come on, cranial plating on an Infect creature? That
I mean,
sounds
you could
great.
just do that in regular Affinity. I mean, that's what Karsten did.
Sure.
Okay, here's Snapcaster Mage
What is
from Shuhei. Who I think was forced to just play it from his hand. It's sitting on the battlefield staring down a Tarmogoyf and an Elemental and looking a little scared. But interestingly, Yamamoto is going to offer the trade for the Elemental here. I'm assuming the Tarmogoyf is absolutely huge. In the 4-5 to 5-6 range, probably. Before blocks, though. Restoration Angel for Nakamura.
Which would also get back a Path to Exile when Snapcaster flickers.
That's right.
If only.
Yeah, so Yamamoto's actually going to target the Snapcaster Mage with his Path to Exile, and guess what? He's got another one.
Jeez. No Angel either. You can have some lands, though.
Now, he's approaching death here, though I don't know if the Snapcaster got the block first there or
No,
not.
I don't think so. I think he wanted to block with the, have the ability to block with the Restoration Angel
Okay.
as well.
Well, in that case, he's going to take 7 to 8 damage here. Yeah. So it was 6 damage. So the Tarmogoyf's a 4-5. So Shuhei drops down to 3 and is in terrible shape here.
Yeah. Yamamoto's just trying to decide if he wants to add more to his board or if he wants to try to play around
Yeah.
Supreme Verdict.
Is the Lingering Soul still
It is, and there's a
hanging out?
Tassiger that he could delve into play.
okay? Yeah, just to put out another lethal threat.
Yeah, the Lingering Souls doesn't change the math all that much.
What is
He knows a lot about
Yeah, he
what
just
Shuhei
passes.
has, though. He knows Shuhei's only card in hand besides the one that he's just drawn. Let's not forget that Shuhei also does have a Celestial Colonnade, I believe, that he can activate here. We'll take a look when we get back to the overhead shot to double check that. Yeah, he does. He's kept that card in his hand and passed the turn back to Yamamoto. Shuhei would be in the unenviable position of chump blocking with his Colonnade if it came to that, but certainly beats losing the game. Kentaro's a pretty careful player.
True.
He's not in a hurry.
I mean, presumably he's planning to attack. He's expecting Shuhei to need to activate that Colonnade. He's just trying to figure out, does he want to wait for that and then follow up? Or does he want to do something like Tassiger first? So if he delves, can he get this path? Can he get his graveyard where the path is? He's got 2 copies of Path to Exile as the only non-lands in his graveyard after this delve. So now when he activates Tassiger, if he spills land, he'll get a path.
He's also grown his elemental token to lethal status on its own.
That's another great point. Yeah, that's why you play Tassiger pre-combat.
Yeah, both things are true. So how is Shuhei going to get out of this spot? He is so far behind here. Now activate block doesn't work. It has to be activate block.
Activate block
kill.
and purge Tassiger.
Yeah, he
does
can
work.
purge Tassiger does work. He would go to 1 in that scenario. And it looks like Kentaro does not have enough mana to activate and cast a path if he were to get one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it does look like Nakamura gets to live for a turn, assuming that Yamamoto doesn't have any other removal in hand here. But the fact that Tassiger... Oh, he has
he drew
Sphinx's
Sphinx's
Revelation.
That was the top deck.
Is that enough? That's only 3. Right?
4.
Oh, it's 4, excuse me.
Still.
Puts him to 7.
How
Isn't
big
he
is
just
Tarmogoyf?
dead?
Did Tarmogoyf shrink by enough? Instant land.
Could have.
Tarmogoyf shrank. Let's see how many card types we get from Tassiger. Activate
Oh, wow.
Tassiger.
This is a big win.
How
Spin
big
of the
is
old wheel
Tarmogoyf
here.
going to be? Tarmogoyf, I believe, is currently 3 power, so that's 6 power. Nakamura is alive at 1, if I'm not mistaken.
So you have it as instant land.
Creature.
Oh, we couldn't see. It was land.
Land, hilarious. Instant land creature. I believe Tarmogoyf's a 3.
Wow, so Shuhei actually gets to live. He needs to find answers pronto. Also, interestingly, so Yamamoto
Yeah,
does
he did get the path.
back a path.
Right. The bad news is you didn't turn Tarmogoyf into something lethal. The good news, though, is he got the path to exile, which makes it almost essentially impossible for Shuhei to block with Colonnade.
Yeah, Shuhei has to find
Lots and lots of gas.
a Wrath here.
There's the Celestial Purge we knew about. I haven't got a chance to see what he drew. Land. And Purge Tassiger.
I think he's going to start things off with a wall. You can definitely purge Tassiger. That is stage 1 of 3 here for Shuhei. He has got a long way to go. Okay, he does that now, indicating to Yamamoto that there is not a Supreme Verdict in his future.
Bounce token, draw a card. Did he get a Tarmogoyf answer?
Did he? He passed. Wow, this is really
Siege Rhino
close.
is lethal. Just drew a lethal Siege Rhino. So he does have the path for the Tarmogoyf, but this Siege Rhino is going to be lethal.
Oh, Shuhei, so close.
Yeah, that's true. He almost stabilized here, but
And you see him kind of smile like,
the
yeah, of
Siege
course.
Rhino.
Why not?
The new addition to the Abzan decks, relatively new addition.
Wow. All right, so Kentaro Yamamoto wins the match 2-0 over Nakamura. The first game wasn't close. That one actually ended up being quite close.
You can see from this shot that we have held Andrew Cuneo, and we're going to get to watch that game 3.
Right, so Ken Yukihiro versus Andrew Cuneo. Andrew is on Infect, and Yukihiro is on Abzan.
Yukihiro probably breathes a sigh of relief. He sees a green land and 1 mana, and it's not Glistener Elf.
Yeah,
if you could play
Pendelhaven
Glistener
too.
Elf on turn 1 every game, everyone would just always play Infect.
Yeah.
Deck is so much better when it gets a Glistener Elf. All right. Andrew was lamenting his keep. He said when they were holding the match, he was complaining to our spotter on the floor that he wished he had taken a mulligan so he wouldn't have to spend the entire break wondering if he should have taken a mulligan. And you can see Ken Yukihiro's stats are starting to add up. 166 lifetime pro points. The 1 Pro Tour top 8, half a dozen Grand Prix top 8s.
Whoa, look at his Twitter handle.
Wow.
It's pretty sinister.
It's metal.
No kidding. So let's take a look at Cuneo's hand. No infect creatures, but a
Right.
lot of pump.
Right. And that's why he was wondering if he should have mulliganed.
Yeah,
Become
mutagenic growth finds a Vastwood.
There was a Become Immense and a Gataxian Probe, I believe, were the other 2.
Yeah.
I think you take Become Immense. That is what Yukihiro has taken. Yeah, Andrew needs to draw an infect creature. It is really hard to deal 20 damage. I mean, Noble Hierarch's capable. It's been done.
It is. He does have Pendelhaven. He does not have a 1/1.
Oh, he's going to pay the blue mana for the Gitaxian Probe.
So he's just not on the damage plan here.
Certainly not this turn.
No.
Doesn't have to deal 20. He's only 17. Stranger things have happened.
Cunio's left-handed.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I don't think I did either.
You know Paul Cheon is too?
I did not know that.
All right, what did he come up with? Oh, hello.
Oh, look at that.
An Inkmoth Nexus. So that whole quest for a creature, he really found what has to be the best one in his whole deck, right? Doesn't die to sorcery, speed removal. It's quite difficult to interact with. Does meet the requirements for Pendelhaven. Meanwhile, his hand is getting completely ripped
He's down
apart
to just
here.
mutagenic growth.
But as you'll note
and
here,
Pendelhaven
though,
and Noble Hierarch.
yes, that's what I was going to say. Is that when you look at it like this,
It's a 3-turn
though,
clock.
right? And look at the clock that Ken Yukihiro has. Nothing. He has no board state whatsoever because he's using every turn to rip apart Cunio's hand. Well, Cunio gets fresh draw steps every turn. And Cunio does not want to open the door. It looks like he had just attacked with the Hierarch there.
He did. I mean, it's 2 Thought Seizes, some fetch lands.
Yeah.
Yukihiro's down to 12.
He is. That Become Immense is like half of his life total now. Fortunately, it's in the graveyard for Cunio. You can see why he took it. So quite a few cards there that can kind of get Andrew Cunio in that spot. Oh, it's an interesting one, though, for Yukihiro. Let's see what he plays this turn. He's got a Replicate in his hand, which very awkwardly does not hit Inkmoth Nexus. Another reason to love that card.
Path to Exile, though.
Yes. I believe I see Murderous Cut in hand as well. Is that possible?
Was that the Tassiger? There's a Tassiger.
Ah, that must have been the Tassiger then. And by the way, there's Tassiger.
In play.
All right, so Ken Yukihiro has found
a thing that can attack.
Yes, a clock. Cunio's at a pretty comfy 19, though. He will have some time to operate.
Yeah. 1 land away from starting to get extra value out of Tassiger, too. Ken has left up white mana. So he's representing Path to Exile. Andrew sees it. We saw him last turn choose not to bother activating and attacking with his Inkmoth Nexus.
That mana is still available. Also, cards like Dismember come into play here.
Dryad Arbor has joined the team. All right, now I think Andrew, now that Tassiger's around, he can't really wait until he has some way to play around Path to Exile. He has to hope Ken doesn't have it, but Ken does.
Remember, this is a game 3 here between Cunio and Yukihiro, and Cunio was Threat Light to start with, found one, and now it's gone.
Yeah, lost both his 2 Giant Growths to a pair of Thought Seizes. Lost his only Infect creature to a Path. But here's a replacement Infect creature.
All
so
right.
Second Inkmoth Death. Now that attack makes even more sense.
Right.
No reason to wait for a Vines of Vastwood when you just have another Inkmoth. How does this race go? The Inkmoth is still going to outrace Tassiger? Especially since Hierarch can chump once.
Yeah, quite easily.
Oh, Lingering Souls are going to gum up the works, though.
Ugh, this is such a problem for this Infect deck. They have ways around it, like you said, but doesn't mean they always have them.
Right, and sometimes what you have is the draw where Inkmoth is getting an Exalted Trigger and a Pendelhaven, and you're just trying to hit him for 3 a couple of times, soften him up so that the 1 Giant Growth you have left is good enough. And the Mutagenic Growth is the last thing we saw with Cunio. Oh, he also has Mind of Alcrosa.
Really?
It's tricky, though. I mean, guess he has to just try to slog his way through these tokens, but they're going to get flashed back. There's 4 turns worth of chump blockers. How big can he get this if he dumps his whole hand on it? 3, 4, 5, 6. He's going to have to connect at least twice. Or draw another Giant Growth.
Well, he certainly has plenty of them floating around in his library.
Combat. 10.
And Cunio's life total is falling pretty quickly here. He's
Right.
down to 10.
And Souls gets flashback.
Yeah, 2 more replacement spirits, but you can tell that
And a
Yukihiro.
voice.
Oh, wow. That's a 5/5.
Cunio's got, what, one more turn after this?
I mean, that could leave a 5/5 behind. Yeah, wow. This is a clock here. 4, 5,
Right.
6, 7, 8, 9 damage here.
Yeah, Cunio needs to make... He's not going to have time to slog through the souls.
No.
He's got to come up with a way to make his poison creature unblockable.
Okay, he just found a blighted agent. You just said unblockable.
I did.
Does this... Can he block with his Dryad Arbor maybe on Tassiger?
Well, he can buy a turn.
Buy himself one
I don't
turn?
think he's lethal in one hit is the problem. I
Even
think he
with the
has to top deck a Giant Growth.
Okay.
I think he can top deck a Giant Growth for the win.
Can
He's
it
got
be
Might of
any
Old
of them?
Krosa and Mutagenic Growth. Yeah, I think any of them will work. Because he's also, he can Pendlehaven first to get it to 2 power.
Right.
Noble Hierarch gets it to 3. Mutagenic Growth gets it to 5. Might of Old Krosa. Yeah, any Giant Growth will do. So yeah,
Wow.
Ken can apply all the pressure. Andrew's Dryad Arbor can take one for the team.
Which I think it must here, right?
Yeah, that's
Andrew
10
can't-
power.
Yeah, and well,
6.
he's taking 6 here.
Oh, 6.
Right, but the key is that he doesn't go to 3, right? He doesn't want to get Siege Rhino'd out of here. But he can go to 4, which he did.
Ken's thinking.
Oh,
What's
what
he
is Ken thinking about?
See, he doesn't have a tech edge,
Two
does he?
guys?
What
Yes.
land does he have?
Oh, well, he can do the play we talked about a minute ago where he can activate Tassiger to try to get back that path.
Aha.
He would have to go land to do it. That would more or less... Oh, he's got
Got
the
Abrupt
Abrupt
Decay.
Decay in his hand still.
That's,
He's just going to do it right now. Well,
that makes this a lot harder.
Yeah.
With 3 Lingering Souls on defense, the Distortion Strike is maybe the last out for plus power and unblockable on the
Right.
Ink Moth. So I think Andrew had outs, but I think he was down to just Distortion Strike. Can't see what he drew.
It was Vines
Oh,
of
Vines of
Vastwood.
Vastwood. Wow.
Ugh.
If it wasn't for the Abrupt Decay, that Blighted Agent could, in fact, have dealt all 10 poison on that one attack.
Yeah.
This is why people play Abrupt Decay, though. Now, okay. Now Andrew has to figure out if he can block and survive another turn. He's on 4,
He's on 4.
so he can take another hit from the Voice. He can't take Voice and 3 Spirit tokens, but Ken might not attack with all the Spirit tokens out of fear of a crackback.
Yeah, if all 3 Spirit tokens were to attack, then Andrew Cunio is compelled to block both attackers.
All right. Ink Moth gets blocked, of course.
Good turn.
Andrews. Cunio has to just hope
Full
that
damage.
Ken isn't going to go for it.
Now, if Ken's empty-handed, he's just going to activate Tassiger here, right?
Yeah. Man, Lingering Souls has looked great.
It looks
this
so
round.
good.
It's great against Jeskai. It's been great against Infect.
Where are the combo decks?
It's been great in Stanislav Sivka's deck, too. Sivka's playing Intangible Virtue.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Although you know what deals with Lingering Souls?
What's that?
Anger of the Gods, which Jelger Vigersmod just used to wipe Stanislav Sivka's board, and so he could attack for the win with Batterskull.
Wow.
So Jelger sticking on the King of the Hill table.
He is. He likes it there. He asked when they were getting time, he said, if we tie, do I get to stay? So that means that this is actually our last match going in the feature match area here.
Yep.
And this is a game 3.
Combat. Sure.
All right, so Tassiger is lethal on his own.
Yeah, Ken's not going to attack with the Spirit tokens because he's afraid that Cunio will have something and he'll need those spirits to block Ink Moth Nexus. If he had turned those 2 spirits sideways, he would just win the game.
Well,
Not quite.
he would
Dryad
get in
Arbor
for
and...
2. Yeah.
Sorry, you're right. I forgot there's 2 blockers available. So Ken's play just is correct.
I mean, I'm sure there's something to be said for forcing Cuneo to lose 2 mana sources. It also loses +1/+1. But in order for Ken to make that kind of calculation, he'd really have to know Andrew Cuneo's deck.
Now, that Dryad Arbor is capable of dealing real damage, too. Ken Yukihiro's
at
down
5?
to 5, yes.
Huh.
I mean, that's why Andrew is hesitant to block with his Dryad Arbor. He's like, do I want to keep the Exalted creature? Or do I want to keep the creature that can deal a second potentially lethal attacker?
And here's another blocker
Another second
now for
He
Ken.
knew about the second Tassiger.
Yeah.
So I think he knew that his odds of getting through with a normal creature on the ground were really small. So he's bought himself another turn to draw toward. Distortion Strike would do it. I don't know if Apostle's Blessing is good enough. I mean, it certainly can make something unblockable, but now, yeah, not good enough.
That's going to
Couldn't
do
find
it.
it.
Ken Yukihiro wins, and a sigh of relief from Ken's side of the
Yeah,
table. You can't blame
it's so
him.
scary.
That
It is
Infect
so
deck is the
scary to play against
scariest. Yeah.
Infect.
The first few times you play it, you're like, oh, I'm good.
Right.
Dead. Okay.
dead.
I'll respect it more. And then, like, you eventually work yourself down that line.
So, like, I must chump block every Infect creature every turn the entire game.
Yes, which is
And then they make
exactly what
something
Ken did.
unblockable.
And then they do that, and they get you anyway. Yeah, so great stuff down there for sure. That's going to do it for round number 6 for us. But yeah, we had Kentaro Yamamoto win his match 2-0 over Shuhei Nakamura, and down there also Jelger Vigersma. He has
still the king.
maintained his king seat, and we've got Frank Karsten, the winner, and Andrew Cuneo falling to Ken Yukihiro as well.
So Affinity, Abzan twin,
Yes,
the usual suspects.
that's what I'm seeing here. So, yeah, good stuff for Modern so far, though.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I've certainly enjoyed what I've seen so far down there. All right, so I guess we can go over to the news desk now, where Richard Hagan awaits.
I'm always here, Marshall, always glued to my screen, as I'm sure you are at home, with all the shenanigans of Modern. My goodness me, there's some great stuff going on around the tables. So we've got a little bit of time before round 7. The players are going to have a little break. So here's what we're going to bring you. We're going to go back inside R&D in just a moment, show you some more about the way that Fate Reforged came together, the latest Magic the Gathering set. Then Brian David Marshall will be here at the video wall with more players, bringing you the ins and outs, the early, the middle, and the late game, the flow of Modern. And don't forget, in just 2 weeks, there's a Modern Grand Prix here in North America. If you want a chance to break out the Modern for the first time, Vancouver could be a great choice for you. And then we'll take a little look at the scores. How are the teams getting on? How are those groups of players that come together to test, to try and break the format? How are they doing? We'll show you in this next break. But right now, it's time to go back to Seattle, back to Wizards of the Coast, and back to the inside R&D for Fate Reforged.
Magic has always been a game of winners and losers, and here in Fate Reforged, it's time to make a choice. Will it be Khans, or will it be dragons?
Dagatar the Adamant is the Khan of the ancient Abzan. He is a proud man, a master strategist, and a capable leader. He has bound into his mace, there's an amber piece, and bound into it is a malevolent ancestor spirit, which hints at the not so nice nature of Abzan death worship.
One of the things that really excited me about the new Khans is that you can still play them in Commander as a 3-color commander, but if you don't want to, you could maybe play a 2-color deck and still cast the Khan using just 2 colors of mana and still be able to activate their ability. So I think it allows an interesting degree of deck building flexibility for Commander players that you don't usually see.
Shuyun, called the Silent Tempest, is possibly the oldest person on Tarkir. Now, in an age where it's pretty typical to get eaten by a dragon before you're 30, that's maybe not saying so much, but he is, despite a kind of ambiguously aged appearance, he's extremely ancient. He is a capable dragon slayer, a brilliant scholar, and a revered elder among the Jeskai. He also has, Shuyun has this dragon tattoo, you can see it in his art, that is given only to people who have personally slain a dragon in one-on-one combat.
A 3-mana 3/2 is a rarity in blue, and it has prowess, and it has another strong ability. I remember internally we were playing with this card and killing way too fast sometimes. We had to test it a lot to make sure we could get it through, because giving any creature double strike whenever you cast a non-creature spell can let you hit pretty hard. I think it's in a good spot, but we'll see.
Tasigur is a rather unpleasant little man. He's young, he's under 20, and pale and sickly and imperious, cruel, vain, hedonistic, great guy.
Blue and green notoriously are a pretty difficult combination when it comes to multicolor cards and multicolor effects. So we knew this card wanted to have Delve, we knew it wanted to play with the graveyard, and we knew it wanted to have a blue-green hybrid ability, but where do you go from there? And so Dave Humphreys actually was looking through old Magic sets and got inspiration from a card from Ice Age called Forgotten Lore, I believe it's called, maybe Forbidden Lore. You'll have to double check me on that. But what this card does is it allows you to regrow a card from your graveyard, but your opponent has some choice over which card you get back. And that it really nailed it in terms of giving a clever mind game to your opponent. Felt a little bit blue. Regrowing cards from the graveyard felt green, but this is sort of something that both colors can do, and that's where we ended up.
Alesha, who smiles at death, which is maybe my favorite nickname ever, is the Khan of the Ancient Mardu. She is only 19, but she is an accomplished warrior, a great leader. She's extremely skilled at bringing out the best in her people, not just sticking to one idea of what the Mardu can be, but of making sure that everyone has a chance to contribute their skills, all toward the goal of mostly killing dragons. She herself had to fight hard for the right to be recognized as a woman, but among the Mardu they have this tradition, the war name tradition, where you fight, you win, you earn your war name. And so she stood up and said, "My name is Alesha," and among the Mardu they say, "Yes, you are."
Alicia, who smiles at death, is the Khan of the Mardu clan back in the misty days of the past of Fate Reforged. And the Mardu, regardless of which mechanic they're using, are always all about attacking. Sometimes your opponent will block your attacking creatures, and this is usually pretty sad because then your creatures die. But the good thing about Alicia is she doesn't care about that. She can bring your warriors back from the dead, and they can continue the assault.
Yasova Dragonclaw is the Khan of the Ancient Temur, and you'll notice Surak Dragonclaw was the Khan of the Temur in the present of Khans of Tarkir. That is the title that the Temur Khan is given. Yasova is both an accomplished warrior and a seriously powerful shaman who can swat dragons out of the sky with her magic. She also has this enormous saber-toothed cat that follows her everywhere. She and Sarkhan have a run-in over the course of the Fate Reforged story in which he realizes that she is, in fact, unwittingly working for Nicol Bolas.
Yasova Dragonclaw is a card that we really wanted to fit into Temur decks and Constructed. We knew we wanted her to work with the Ferocious ability from Khans of Tarkir, so we gave her 4 power. And we just thought that keying off of power was a really flavorful thing to do as far as the Temur clan is concerned. So her ability allows you to steal a creature with weaker power than her, so she can kind of muscle around your opponent's creature and bully them into coming over to your side for a turn. And she's a lot of fun. She works really well in Temur decks and activates your Ferocious cards, and we expect to see her show up in Tournament Constructed.
Khans of Tarkir, a world without any dragons at all. So when we came to Fate Reforged, it was time to put in some really awesome dragons. We weren't going to get a ton of them, but we knew we wanted 5 really cool, marquee, multicolored dragons to drive home the point, hey, there are dragons on this world now.
Ojutai Soul of Winter is the oldest of the dragons who's associated with white and blue mana and lives in the mountains of the Jeskai. Ojutai is a little more cerebral than the other dragons. And Ojutai brood dragons have been known to actually speak the Draconic language, at least. The Ojutai brood dragons have feathers, which gives them this really unique appearance. They're very slender and elegant looking, and they prefer the cold and breathe jets of ice.
Ojutai Soul of Winter is more of a calculating fellow, and he'll get in there a few times and start locking down your opponent's permanents. So he's sort of the blue-white control dragon.
Silumgar, the Drifting Death, and his brood live in the boggy swamplands of Tarkir, and they're exactly as pleasant as you would imagine from dragons associated with blue and black. They have this almost crocodilian appearance with widespread legs and heavy heads. They breathe a toxic, corrosive gas that eats away or chokes and kills anything in its path, and they're the scourge of the Sultai.
When we were working on Fate Reforged, we wanted to make sure we had a good number of finishers in the set. And a control and control finisher is always really important. So this is a big creature that you can't easily kill because it has hexproof, but also does some good work against the beatdown decks. If they're making lots of tokens, for example, you can attack and wipe out their board. But also, those packs of 3 damage, after 3 damage, after 3 damage, can close out mini-control games.
Kolaghan, the Storm's Fury, is the oldest and scariest dragon who's associated with black and red mana. Kolaghan breed dragons are really, really interesting. They have 4 wings, they're incredibly fast, and they breathe bolts of lightning. So the ancient Mardu fear them, respect them, follow them to scavenge their kills.
Picture this. You're playing against your black-red opponent, you've stabilized the board, you think you're out of range, you even have some sorcery speed removal, and then bam! Out of nowhere, they tap 5, down comes Kolaghan, dashes in, attacks you, you're down to 5 life, and you realize it's back in their hand, ready to attack you again next turn, and there's nothing you can do about it. Prepare yourself, you'll be facing this many times this standard season.
Atarka, World Render, is the biggest, baddest dragon who lives in the Temur Highlands. The Temur respect her, almost revere her, but are obviously terrified of her. Atarka brood dragons are associated with red and green mana, and they breathe fire, like you'd really expect a traditional dragon to do.
Atarka World Render is totally sweet if you're playing a dragon tribal deck. It gives all of your dragons double strike, and dragons are generally huge and or have fire breathing, so double strike is pretty insanely powerful on a creature that big.
We had lots of FFL decks testing this card, including with Xenagos, God of Revelry from Born of the Gods. So Xenagos can come down 1 turn, Atarka can come down the next, get haste, get +X/+X, attack, get double strike, and just really deal just an insane amount of damage to your opponent, sometimes finishing them in 1 hit.
Dromoka the Eternal is a dragon associated with green and white mana, and the scourge of the Abzan in their sandy home. There are 2 really notable facts about Dromoka and her brood. They have really thick scales, so they're almost impervious to conventional weapons. Fighting them is very, very difficult. They're just tough, and they breathe bolts of searing light that can just completely incinerate everything in their path.
I remember the first day I saw Dromoka in the file. I actually didn't think we could print it. It was just so strong. A 5-mana 5/5 flyer in green-white already has my attention. And you attack, you start bolstering, your creatures get huge, and of course, I love my Abzan counter decks, so it would build up really fast, and my Abzan Falconers would turn on, and it was pretty powerful. We playtested it a lot, and it's a king of mid-range creatures often, but there are some ways to fight it. I wouldn't be surprised if it beat you up a few times, though.
We sort of aimed these to look backwards throughout Magic's history, in that there are plenty of awesome dragons, players love them, you can build a casual dragon deck and have these all work together. It's a bit of a shame that there aren't too many dragons in Standard right now, although we do have a set with dragons in the title coming up, so maybe we'll see some.
Yeah, who knows? Dragons of Tarkir might be about Cat Warriors, possibly. Ian Duke there, wrapping up part 2 of Inside R&D. We'll have much more from the guys and girls who make Magic in Seattle tomorrow on the broadcast, both during lunch and dinner. But here we are through 6 rounds. We've got 2 rounds to come today. Why don't we take a look at our master scoreboard and show you what is going on in the field? Well, we are down to just 6, the 6 6-0s. And there are some unfamiliar faces there, but there is no doubt that the big story, Marco Lombardi, Roberto Esposito, Marco Camiluzzi, all from Italy, 3 Italians at 6-0. Wow, boy, did they get their metagame calls right. Fantastic job. Then you've got Osman Ozguni, the 35-year-old Turkish Magic Online player, up at 6-0. You have United States represented by Seth Mansfield and Austin Bursovic. Austin Bursovic, terrific story, 22-year-old, couple of $1,000 prize money lifetime, played in 1 Pro Tour, that was Austin in 2009, and basically didn't do very well there, but he was 16 at the time, comes back now and is really making the most of it. 1 more player undefeated, that's Jelga Vigasma, who of course we've seen in feature match action throughout the day. And there you see a selection of 5-1s, tons of big names on our first top 20 right now. John Stern there from Canada, Yamamoto, the rank number 16, Eric Froelich, number 11. Thiago Fonseca's now has his first loss, but you look at the Hall of Famers, you've got Zvi Moshevitz there, Kenji Samura, and I can tell you also that John Finkel from the Hall of Fame, he is also at 5-1. So plenty more to come on our leaderboard, but right now it's time to go over to the video wall and it's time to have another look inside a modern archetype. Waiting for us patiently, Brian David Marshall, and yet more initials, it's BBD.